Washington State, you folks are doing what the left has done successfully, and that is use the courts to challenge a voter-approved piece of legislation, a voter-approved ballot initiative. In this case, it's ballot initiative 1639. In a nutshell, how do you encapsulate 1639?
Well, it's hard to explain in just a few words because it's 30 pages. It's a gun control, gun prohibitionist wish list. It goes from everything from so-called enhanced background checks, which it doesn't explain, to increased waiting periods, to banning the sale of firearms, semi-automatic firearms of any kind to 18 to 20-year-olds, to all kinds of training requirements that aren't really spelled out, that aren't even available right now, to the fact that it actually engages in violating the Interstate Commerce Clause of our Constitution, because now, while it's legal to buy firearms across state lines, long guns, rifles, and shotguns across the state line, this would make it impossible because of the fact you couldn't comply with the Washington state law part of it, violating federal law and the federal Constitution. It just goes on and on and on.
So in other words, this is what I would call a severe attack on folks' constitutional rights. Not only Washingtonians, people who reside in Washington State, but folks who happen to just be there temporarily. How do you quantify that this measure was passed, 1639? The will of the people, obviously they've spoken by passing the thing. Were they hoodwinked? A lot of money behind this thing?
There was a lot of money behind it. A half a dozen billionaires donated millions of dollars, about 90% of the money that was used to buy the TV and radio spots to push the initiative through. And of course, the ballot title is only a few words, and the summary is only a sentence or two. And so no, you couldn't explain what 30 pages did in this thing, and it was all done on emotion and fear.
And you say, of course, it violates the Second Amendment, violates the 14th Amendment. I would imagine that's equal protection, but also violates the First Amendment.
It violates the First Amendment as well because it forces people to say things about guns in gun stores or in training that you don't believe in or don't think is accurate or is fair or workable or safe. So it forces you to say things and do things that you wouldn't normally do. It likewise, the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Constitution, it violates that as well. It also violates our state constitution, which is significantly stronger than the federal constitution when it comes to protecting gun rights.
I would throw in there the Fourth Amendment with this provision that you have to sign some sort of waiver to allow a search of your personal medical records. I think that's unreasonable search and seizure. That's just my opinion. I don't know if you want to amend your brief or not. Speaking of that, where does the lawsuit stand right now? Has there been any response? Are you in the court phase? Where are you?
We filed it. We're waiting for the state of Washington to respond, and then we'll have motions for court dates, hearings, and discovery.
Now, just for the record, when this ballot initiative was being proposed and during the election cycle, during the midterm election cycle, law enforcement was against it. Am I correct on that?
Every major, in fact, really every state law enforcement association and group came out in opposition to it. And in fact, we now have a number of police chiefs and sheriffs across the state that are refusing to, enforce it because they believe it's unconstitutional and they don't want to infringe on people's constitutional rights.
It seems as though this is an effort, and part of a larger effort, but part and parcel to an effort to deny constitutional rights vis-a-vis the Second Amendment to Americans. But it seems to me that this is part of the effort to turn what we know to be a right enshrined in the United States Constitution into a privilege which is controlled by the bureaucrats, which is controlled by government.
Oh, most definitely. And one of the parts of this initiative that really bothered me the most is it redefines what a so-called assault rifle is to be any semi-automatic firearm. And again, this is the gun prohibition wish list, because if they can do that, they can then use that as justification to ban guns all across the country.
Do you look at this the way I do, that this is part and parcel, again, to an incremental attack on the Second Amendment? First, you may have an extended waiting period, then you ban certain aspects of firearms, then you label firearms a certain way, and then once you've labeled them a certain way, then you ban them because they have this ugly name attached to them, and then you start raising the age where an American can purchase a gun. What is next is the question.
Well, its next is prohibition. They can't get it in one chunk, so they try and take it piecemeal. You're right. This is a progression to destroy gun rights in the United States.
And the next thing you know, we'll have some bureaucrat telling us our rights are no longer a right, that we're going to have to go to the DMV, if you will, of guns in order to purchase a firearm in this country. Alan, keep us informed on how the lawsuit progresses. Thank you.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.